Sure.
So first of all, thank you for taking the time. I really enjoyed this series. What I've seen so far,
Thanks.
really, it keeps you going. It keeps you on your feet at all times. Which, is very rare for a series these days. There's always the straightforward stuff, but this one comes at you from all different angles. My question is, what is your elevator pitch for the series? Like, it can't be less than 1,000 words.
It was not simple. That's probably why it took 10 years. Yeah, basically, I mean, I saw one of our producers, Seth Rogen, was on Jimmy Kimmel last night trying to describe it, and it reminded me of, it's not an easy thing to describe. And having worked on it so long, I would forget how unlike other shows it is, because it all seems very straightforward to me. And I think it makes sense when you watch it, but basically it's, the show came about because in 2012, a guy named Paul T. Goldman tweeted at me that he had an incredible story to tell, and he asked for my help bringing it to the screen. And he had a video on his website about how he had married someone who turned out to deceive him and had a secret double life, and it empowered him, and it took him on this journey, as he put it, from wimp to warrior. He wrote a book about it that he self-published on Amazon. This is not an elevator pitch. He wrote a screenplay, and I wanted to do basically a documentary about him, the documentary style project. I don't know, docu-dramedy, just exploring him and his story and using his writing and using him to kind of explore every angle of this thing that I found very interesting.
Yeah, that's a long elevator.
I gotta do better.
Work on it.
Luckily, the show exists now. I'll never have to pitch it again. I mean, that was the most difficult, miserable part of this, was getting into rooms with people and trying to convey what it was. Now I can just send a link, which is much, much easier.
Even when I first learned about it, there was a letter involved that had
and the letter was too long.
What is going on here?
I know. It's I mean, I guess I could just say it's a documentary about an interesting guy who married someone who had a secret double life. And
how did that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and then I could just leave all the kind of meta format stuff out of it, I guess. I don't know.
So how does a tweet lead to the series, though? You said he tweeted hundreds of people, and I received tweets and direct messages, and I'm like, okay, I am instant delete. What was it that caught your eye?
I watched a video with him, and I guess I found him compelling from the beginning. He had shot it himself, and it might even still be on YouTube, but it was Paul, and you've seen Paul by now, and he was about 10 years younger, but he was talking about how he had empowered himself to take down this crime ring, and I was hooked. I found him fascinating. I read his book. I flipped out over the book, and I was like, yeah, this has to be something. And I just I didn't let it go. I don't know if I would click on it nowadays. I mean, now I definitely wouldn't, especially after this, because I feel like now that having this project come out, it might invite other people to tweet at me. I'm probably not going to go down this road again, but through whatever happenstance and magical timing, it just got its hooks in me, and I didn't let go.
And how often did you question if you were being scammed or played throughout the process? Because it's, I know we're more cynical now. 10 years ago, I think people were a little more trusting, but over this last decade, which the series took 10 years to produce, which I'd like to get a grasp on that. Sure. As well. But so what was your read on Paul? And did you ever say, I just made a huge mistake?
When I first read the book, I became obsessed with the book. I didn't respond to him for months. He had a website at the time. He had a newsletter called like the Warrior Weekly or something. It might be a different title. It was something like that, though. It was something with the Warrior. And the time he said he was trying to help other people, men and women who'd been scammed by significant others, not go through what he did. And that was kind of his angle. And I just watched him quietly, and I tried to determine, I wanted to make sure he wasn't dangerous, and that I didn't think he was crazy, mentally ill, or someone, the wrong kind of person for this. And eventually I felt like he was just kind of the right level of uniqueness that I could engage with. And so I wrote back to him, and he was living in Newport Beach, just like an hour and a half south of LA, where I live at the time. And so I went down with a few friends and a camera, and we interviewed him. And from that point, you just, you meet Paul and you get a sense right away, oh, this is the real deal. He's not putting on a character. He's not someone with secret motives, or he thinks in a very interesting, unique way. And I mean, everything you see on screen, to the best of my ability, is an honest depiction of Paul. And I just got that sense right away that I was dealing with I knew who I was dealing with.
I just realized I didn't have a camera on.
Oh
This
yeah,
cat
hi,
is
good to see you.
driving me a little crazy. Nice to see you as well. The film, or the series, I'm sorry, has a built-in meta kind of quality to it. It's got, it's a documentary, it's kind of comedy, it's got a little bit of everything. And as the story is being told, it snowballs and gets bigger and bigger, but it's like a yo-yo with a giant growing snowball on it that when you think you know where it's going, it pulls back and goes in a different direction. How did you decide the approach for the series to not just go straight forward and tell Paul's story, with a standard screenplay, but with this more complex, challenging approach?
It was a process. There were ideas I had early on that stuck, and there were ideas I had early on that I completely threw out. And I really had to learn how to just follow where the story was taking me and try my best to be honest about that and let go of things, ideas I had that, oh, I'll use this to show this, or, with something like this where you're really trying to find something truthful, you have to be open to where it takes you. And sometimes something you thought was true or a valid point turns out to be totally wrong. I mean, we have hundreds of hours of footage that we've shot with Paul versus interviews and on set and these reenactments and documentary footage in Florida. And what I've kind of learned through this process is when you're doing something like this, which to me, it's ultimately a documentary project. It's a profile of a real person. It's using all these materials that he wrote, and it's using him to explore him. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to figure out a real person and what motivates him. And on another level, kind of trying to figure out what motivated me to do this. But the process is that you shoot all this stuff and you go in with ideas, and then you watch it all. And often the story it's telling back to you is different than what you thought it was going to be. And it's really hard because it's so much easier to be like, okay, we have this scene, you're shooting a normal thing. You have this scene and this is supposed to convey this. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be moving, blah, blah, blah. And you know whether it's working or not, and try to just watch it again and again and again and try to determine what it was telling us. And this was me and my producer, Tyler Benamatz, and my main collaborator on the editing process was Eric Natar-Nicola, who's brilliant, kind of low-key hero of a lot of this kind of work with real people, worked on a lot of Nathan Fielder projects, worked on Borat with me, and just an incredible mind at putting this kind of thing together. And you really just have to keep watching stuff and then really do the difficult work of being honest with yourself about what it's telling you. And then once you realize what the story is, then you kind of have to cut out everything that's not telling you that and really make that clear on screen once you kind of figure it out what it is. But sorry, it's a long answer to your question, but you can't know going in. You have to kind of let the project tell you what it is with something like this.
And your relationship with Paul is quite unique on set, on camera, where he kind of has very little filter and it seems like no boundaries. What's it like working with him on set in comparison to your relationship off set?
On set and off, it's identical. Paul, you meet him, it's identical to the show. It's, it's less, we cut it down, but that's our relationship. And I've been working with him for so long, people ask me if I like Paul. Yeah, of course I like Paul. But it's almost like I feel like him the way I feel towards like a family member or something. Where I like him. He also drives me crazy sometimes, and sometimes I am annoyed with him, and sometimes I feel extremely warmly towards him. It's a complex thing, and we do, as much as I never wanted to be in the show. At a certain point, I had to admit that I was part of the story, and wound up being in it. Even though I hate being on camera and really don't like when people put themselves in their own stuff. I for this, what this project became, I had to do it. I feel like, because not doing it would have been dishonest to what was going on, because I did become part of the story, whether I liked it or not. And so I would just try to, in the process of this, honestly depict all sides of our complex relationship.
What do you hope audiences take away from the series?
Best case scenario would be you watch this, and if it's someone, there's been a lot of documentary projects that are portraits of odd or unique people. And a lot of them are brilliant. I'm huge fans of them. I never wanted this to be a prank or just to be about laughing at a weird person. I don't think he's crazy. I don't think he's wrong about everything he talks about. I think it's very complex. And so my hope is that if you watch all of these, maybe if it's someone that you would have laughed at or not given time to, or just thought was a loon, that you walk away having to do some kind of difficult work of really trying to figure out where you stand, and then ultimately, hopefully being able to kind of live in that complexity and nuance, which is not an easy thing. It's much easier to say, I love this person, I hate this person is, I stand this person is problematic or whatever, but it's less easy to kind of exist with a complex feeling about someone and about a story, and that's certainly where I landed with this, and I would hope a viewer would walk away with the same thing.
I love that. That's great. Let me just wrap with a real quick question. 3 words to describe Paul. Paul the person.
Wimp to warrior.
Excellent. Love it.
I gotta let Paul do that one.
Well, thank you so much for your time here. I'm enjoying the series. I still have a couple episodes left, so I'm sure there's going to be 1,000 turns coming ahead of me. But also, I do love your work. What We Do in the Shadows, The Last Man on Earth, and of course, Borat. Excellent. You've got quite a list of fine work behind you, and I'm looking forward to see what you do next.
Oh, thanks so much, Steve. It was a pleasure talking to you.